Write in the comments where you are watching from and at what time, so I can get to know you better. To support the channel for free, don't forget to subscribe and like. There are records of events that logic cannot contain. Tonight we unseal a forgotten file, designated Case 734B, the disappearance. With no physical trace, an incident so baffling it was officially declared a statistical impossibility before being erased from all public archives. Write in the comments where you are watching from and at what time, so I can get to know you better. To support the channel for free, don't forget to subscribe and like. There are places in this world that are not empty, but have been emptied. Welcome back to the Obsidian Archive. Tonight we unseal a file that officially remains open, yet is buried so deep it might as well be cemented shut. We are examining a category of disappearance so absolute, so total, that it defies conventional explanation. We're talking about a vanishing with no physical trace, no struggle, no body, no evidence of departure. Just absence. Our case file, the Epsilon event. In October of 1987, 4 of the brightest minds in theoretical physics and geology were stationed at the Polaris Epsilon Deep Earth Research Outpost, a state-of-the-art facility buried 200 feet beneath the unforgiving ice of Ellesmere Island in the Canadian Arctic. Dr. Aris Thorne, a brilliant but controversial physicist obsessed with quantum entanglement. Dr. Lena Petrova, a stoic geophysicist mapping subterranean energy fields. Kenji Tanaka, a quiet, meticulous data systems engineer. And Dr. Elias Vance, the veteran team lead and expert in extreme environment survival. Their stated mission was to study seismic activity and the Earth's magnetic field in a location theoretically free from electromagnetic interference. But whispers in declassified circles suggest their true purpose was far more esoteric, touching upon concepts of dimensional resonance and localized space-time distortion. The facility was a marvel of engineering, a self-contained habitat designed to withstand anything the Arctic could throw at it. It was hermetically sealed with a single, heavily fortified access shaft to the surface, monitored 24/7 from a command center in Yellowknife, over 1,000 miles away. For 6 months, communication was routine. Weekly status reports, data transfers, personal logs, all of it painted a picture of monotonous, successful research. Then came the final transmission. On October 27th at 02:13 Zulu time, the comms officer at Yellowknife received an unscheduled audio-only burst from Epsilon. It lasted precisely 47 seconds. The signal was degraded, laced with static and a strange, low-frequency hum that had never been present before. What could be deciphered from the recording remains one of the most chilling artifacts in the history of unexplained phenomena. Dr. Vance's voice, usually calm and authoritative, was strained, breathless. He says, "It's not a reflection. I repeat, the resonance is not a reflection. It's an answer." Then, Petrova's voice cuts in, sharp with panic. "Aris, shut it down! The seal is..." The next few seconds are lost to a surge of static. Then Kenji Tanaka, who had never been heard on an open channel before, speaks a single, clear word in Japanese, utsuro, which translates to hollow or void. The final sound is not a scream, but what sounds like a single, soft exhalation of breath, followed by absolute, deafening silence. The channel went dead. All telemetry from the station, power, life support, seismic sensors, flatlined simultaneously. Station Epsilon, a beacon of science in the heart of nowhere, had simply ceased to exist on the grid. The void had arrived. When a military-grade research facility goes dark in a strategic Arctic location, the response is immediate. A Canadian Armed Forces search and rescue team, specialists in polar operations, was dispatched. Battling blizzard conditions, it took them 72 agonizing hours to reach the surface coordinates of Polaris Epsilon. What they found was the first layer of the impossibility. The surface entry hatch, a 2-ton composite steel door, was locked. Not just locked, but sealed from the inside with its primary and secondary hydraulic bolts fully engaged. There were no signs of tampering, no footprints in the wind-swept snow for hundreds of yards in any direction, save for those of the rescue team themselves. The diesel generator that powered the surface winch was cold, its fuel tanks full. It hadn't been run. After 6 hours of carefully cutting through the reinforced hatch, they descended the 200-foot shaft into the heart of the station. They were prepared for a catastrophe, a structural collapse, a fire, a biological contaminant. They were not prepared for the silence. The station had emergency power, casting the corridors in a dim red glow. The air was still, cold, and perfectly breathable, with oxygen levels and pressure at optimal readings. The station was pristine. In the mess hall, 3 coffee mugs sat on a table, 2 half full. A chessboard had pieces arranged mid-game. In the communications room, a console showed the final, aborted transmission log, frozen on screen. In the living quarters, beds were made, personal laptops were open, and a book lay face down on a nightstand, its page creased. There were no signs of a struggle. No overturned furniture, no blood, no spent shell casings. Nothing was out of place. It was as if the 4 scientists had simply evaporated mid-motion. The search team, hardened veterans of countless grim recovery missions, described the atmosphere as profoundly unnerving. Every room they cleared deepened the mystery. The entire facility was a time capsule of the exact moment communication was lost. The most disturbing discovery was in Dr. Thorne's primary laboratory. His central experiment, a complex array of resonating chambers and magnetic coils, was inert. But on a nearby whiteboard, scrawled in Thorne's own hand, were a series of equations that contemporary physicists still cannot decipher. Next to them was a crudely drawn circle with an X through it, and the words, "It sees the observer. Do not complete the field." The search of the station was meticulous. They checked every vent, every crawl space, every storage locker. They ran thermal scans, Geiger counters, and air particle tests. The results were uniform. Nothing. The 4 inhabitants, weighing a combined total of roughly 700 pounds, along with their heavy-duty outerwear, which was missing from their lockers, had vanished from inside a hermetically sealed, locked facility, leaving behind absolutely nothing to indicate how they left or where they went. The seal of Station Epsilon was physically, demonstrably, and impossibly unbroken. The men of the initial recovery team were not prone to flights of fancy. They were soldiers and engineers, trained to observe, report, and act on facts. But the facts at Station Epsilon were a paradox. The official report, which the Obsidian Archive has acquired through a declassification request, is a masterclass in clinical, frustrated language. It details the methodical, inch-by-inch search. Yet, it's the unofficial logs and later psychological evaluations of the team members that tell the real story. The paradox was this: all evidence of life was present, but life itself was absent. It created a profound cognitive dissonance that began to wear on the team. Sergeant McLeod, the team leader, noted in his personal log on day 2, The silence here is wrong. It's not empty silence, it's heavy, like the air is holding its breath. Several members of the team reported feeling a persistent, unshakable sensation of being watched. Not by a person, but by the station itself. 2 technicians assigned to analyze the station's data logs refused to work alone after one of them swore he saw a shadow move in the reflection of a powered-down monitor. The other claimed to hear a low hum, identical to the one on the final transmission, that couldn't be traced to any power source and wasn't detected by their audio equipment. They were medically cleared, with no signs of hypoxia or psychological distress. The investigation became a hunt for ghosts in a machine that was, by all accounts, perfectly healthy. They ran diagnostics on the life support systems, thinking perhaps a sudden, undetectable neurotoxin had caused hallucinations and a fatal error in judgment. But the air scrubbers, filters, and oxygen generators were all functioning flawlessly. The food and water supplies were untainted. They analyzed the station's structural integrity, looking for a hidden exit, a fissure, a collapse that could have swallowed the team. They found nothing. The station was as solid as the bedrock it was built into. This is the core of the first responders' paradox. How do you investigate a crime with no crime scene? How do you mount a rescue for people who are missing, but have left no evidence of ever having gone? The team was trapped in a logical loop. They had a sealed container, the number of people who were inside, and the confirmation that they were no longer there. But the fundamental law of conservation of mass dictates that matter cannot simply cease to be. The team had vanished, taking their heavy Arctic gear with them, from a room with one locked door 200 feet below the ice. The official search was eventually called off after 3 weeks. The report concludes with no evidence of foul play, no evidence of environmental catastrophe, no evidence of egress, status of 4 personnel, unresolved. Privately, the men who walked those silent, red-lit halls were left with a chilling uncertainty that defied their training and experience. They hadn't just found an empty station. They had stumbled into a place where the rules of the physical world appeared to have been suspended. In the aftermath of the Epsilon event, the official response was one of quiet containment. The station was permanently sealed, the access shaft filled with concrete. The official narrative released to the public was that the 4 scientists were tragically lost in a sudden, catastrophic, structural collapse. A lie, plain and simple. But in the classified world, a task force was formed. Its goal was not to find the scientists, they were considered irretrievable, but to understand what had happened. Their entire investigation was an exercise in mapping an absence. They weren't following a trail of evidence. They were trying to draw a perimeter around a hole in reality. They pored over the station's recovered data, focusing on Dr. Thorne's work. His research was on the bleeding edge of physics, hypothesizing that under specific high-energy conditions, spacetime was not a constant, but a fabric that could be thinned or even punctured. His logs spoke of achieving unprecedented levels of quantum resonance, creating a stable field that seemed to interact with something. His final entry, made just hours before the last transmission, reads, "The field is no longer just a mirror of our own energy input. It's producing its own signal. A perfect echo, but it arrives a microsecond before our transmission. It's not an echo, it's a precursor." The investigators brought in theoretical physicists to analyze this. Most dismissed it as impossible, a violation of causality. But one, whose name is redacted in the file, proposed a terrifying theory. He suggested that Thorne hadn't opened a doorway to another place, but had instead attracted the attention of something that operates on principles entirely alien to our physics. Something that doesn't travel through space, but simply arrives. A non-physical entity or phenomenon that, upon observing the scientists, effectively erased them from the physical world. A predator whose hunting ground is existence itself. This theory, while outlandish, was the only one that fit the impossible facts. No physical entry, no physical exit, no struggle, just a perfect, instantaneous removal from a locked system. The official file on the Epsilon event ends with a single, heavily redacted recommendation. All research into quantum resonance fields of this nature is to be suspended indefinitely. All existing data is to be classified at the highest level. The risk of replication is deemed existential. They didn't find out what happened to the crew of Station Epsilon. They only learned enough to be terrified of it happening again. The file was closed, the station was buried, and the story was forgotten. But the absence remains. A perfectly preserved research station, entombed in Arctic ice, stands as a silent monument to 4 brilliant minds who looked too deeply into the void, and in doing so, became part of it. They are a permanent, chilling testament to the fact that some disappearances leave no trace, because the very act of their vanishing erases the path. There is nothing to find, because in the end, there was nothing left. Write in the comments where you are watching from and at what time, so I can get to know you better. To support the channel for free, don't forget to subscribe and like. Some doors, once opened, reveal not a room, but an absence. Narrator. June 14th. A wellness check. That's how it begins. Not with a bang, not with a scream, but with a polite procedural knock on a door that has no intention of being answered. Apartment 7B. The residence of Alex Mercer, a 34-year-old data analyst who hadn't logged into his work server for 72 hours. An anomaly for a man whose life ran with the precision of a Swiss watch. When the building manager finally unlocked the door, police weren't met with chaos. They weren't met with signs of a struggle or the grim tableau of a crime scene. They were met with something far more disturbing. Nothing. The air inside was still, cool, and carried the faint, chemical scent of lemon cleaner. The apartment was immaculate, not just tidy, but sterile. It was a space scrubbed clean of life itself. The hardwood floors gleamed under the afternoon sun, reflecting the empty, off-white walls. The bed was made with military precision, the duvet cover a taut, unwrinkled surface. In the kitchen, the stainless steel sink was polished to a mirror shine. The dish rack empty. The toothbrush in the bathroom holder was bone dry. No stray hairs. No dust bunnies under the sofa. No fingerprints on the glass coffee table, save for a few smudges belonging to Alex himself, and even those were sparse, isolated. It was as if a human had never lived there, as if it were a showroom model waiting for its first occupant. Retired Detective Miles Corbin, one of the first on the scene, described it years later in a taped interview. His voice, even on the recording, is laced with a lingering sense of disbelief. Detective Corbin. In 25 years, I've seen it all. The messy ones, the brutal ones. But this was different. It wasn't a crime scene. It was a non-scene. It was an erasure. We ran forensics for weeks. We used every technique in the book. We found Alex's DNA on his toothbrush, his hairbrush. But that was it. No unidentified prints, no foreign fibers, no biological material of any kind. It was as if he existed in a vacuum. People who plan to disappear, they might pack a bag, they might leave a note, they might sell their things. They leave ripples. Alex Mercer left a dead calm. It was the most unsettling place I have ever stood in. Narrator. The only object that seemed out of place in this curated void was a single, black, leather-bound notebook left on the center of the coffee table. It had no markings, no brand, no indication of its origin. It was open to the first page, a crisp, clean, empty sheet of paper. Police dusted it for prints, analyzed the paper composition, the binding glue. Nothing. It was just a book, waiting for a story that would never be written. This sterile environment posed a terrifying question. Was this the work of a man so meticulous, so methodical, that he decided to scrub his own existence away before leaving? Or was he taken by a force so precise, so alien, that it could remove a person from reality without leaving so much as a single speck of dust behind? The apartment wasn't just empty, it was hollowed out. A perfect, polished shell where a life used to be. The disappearance with no physical trace had found its ground zero. Narrator. In the 21st century, a person is two things, a physical body and a digital soul. If Alex Mercer's physical world was a sterile vacuum, his digital world was a black hole. Investigators from the Cybercrimes Unit believed this would be the breakthrough. No one, they reasoned, can truly vanish online. We leave echoes, fragments, forgotten accounts, cached data, a trail of binary breadcrumbs. They were wrong. Alex Mercer's digital footprint wasn't just gone. It had been professionally and systematically annihilated. His primary laptop, a high-end machine found sitting closed on his desk, was the first target. The forensic team expected to clone the hard drive and spend months combing through his life. Instead, they found nothing. The drive hadn't just been wiped. It had undergone what experts call a secure erase. Data wasn't just deleted. Every single sector of the drive had been overwritten multiple times with random, meaningless characters. This is not the work of someone hitting the empty recycle bin button. This requires specialized software and a deep understanding of data security, a level of paranoia or preparation that borders on the extreme. It's the kind of procedure used by intelligence agencies to decommission sensitive hardware. His online presence was a similar story of meticulous erasure. Social media profiles on all major platforms had been deactivated precisely 2 weeks before his last known day. Not deleted, which can sometimes be recovered, but deactivated. Placed in a state of indefinite suspension, visible to no one, a digital purgatory. His email accounts were purged, his cloud storage emptied. His financial records were a masterpiece of methodical dissolution. For 6 months leading up to his disappearance, Alex had been withdrawing small, untraceable amounts of cash, always just under the threshold that would trigger an automatic report. He bled his accounts dry, leaving a balance of 0 on the day he vanished. No plane tickets, no bus fares, no car rentals. He simply converted his life into a stack of untraceable paper bills and walked away. We spoke with Dr. Anya Sharma, a cybersecurity analyst who consulted on the case. Dr. Sharma. This wasn't a disappearance, it was a digital exorcism. The person who did this knew exactly what they were doing. They understood data remanence. They knew about server-side backups. They understood the architecture of the internet in a way that 99.9% of users do not. To erase oneself this cleanly is, frankly, terrifying. It implies a level of forethought that is almost inhuman. You're not just hiding, you're trying to prove you never existed in the first place. Narrator. But even the most perfect digital crime can have a ghost. Buried deep within the laptop's system cache, a place temporary files are stored and often overlooked, forensics found one single item that survived the purge. A file named 7B static DAES256. It was tiny, only a few kilobytes, but it was locked with a level of encryption that has to this day never been broken. It sits in a digital evidence locker, a silent, unreadable monolith. What secret was so important that it had to be protected by an unbreakable digital fortress, while the rest of his life was turned to dust? The ghost in Alex Mercer's machine wasn't a memory or a message. It was a lock without a key, a final defiant act of digital silence. He had not only cleaned his apartment, he had wiped the memory of his existence from the global network, leaving behind only this one impossible puzzle. The man of no physical trace was also the man of no digital trace. Narrator, a man can scrub his home, he can wipe his hard drives, but he cannot erase the memories of others. Or can he? The investigation turned from the sterile apartment and the digital void to the most unpredictable of sources. People, neighbors, co-workers, anyone who might have shared a space with the phantom that was Alex Mercer. What they found was perhaps the most chilling piece of the puzzle. It wasn't that people had forgotten him, it was that they had never truly registered him in the first place. He was human static, a background presence that never resolved into focus. Investigators canvassed his apartment building, a modern high-rise filled with young professionals. The responses were eerily similar. The guy in 7B, oh right, quiet guy, kept to himself. Mrs. Gable in 7A remembered him holding the elevator door for her once. She said he nodded, but didn't smile. The student in 7C recalled hearing faint, classical music from the apartment on occasion, but never loudly. No one had ever been inside his apartment. No one had shared a drink with him. No one even knew what he did for a living. He was a collection of polite nods and brief, forgettable encounters. He was the perfect neighbor in a city of millions. Invisible. His workplace, a massive, faceless data processing firm, offered a similar portrait. Alex Mercer was known as efficient, brilliant, and intensely private. He arrived at 8:59 a.m. every morning. He left at 5:01 p.m. every evening. He ate lunch alone at his desk. His work was flawless, but he collaborated only when necessary, communicating through concise, impersonal emails. He left no impression on the office culture. When he vanished, his workload was seamlessly absorbed by the system. He was a ghost in the corporate machine long before he became a ghost in the real world. Perhaps the most tragic detail came from the official records. Alex Mercer was an orphan. His parents had died in a car crash when he was young, and he had aged out of the foster care system with no known relatives. He had built a life for himself from scratch, but it was a life without anchors, without the deep roots of family or friendship that keep a person tethered to the world. This profound isolation was the key. It was the perfect environment for a disappearance with no physical trace. There were no frantic friends to raise the alarm after a day. There was no concerned family to notice a subtle shift in his behavior weeks prior. He had cultivated a life of such complete anonymity that when he was plucked from it, the world barely registered the change. It begs the question, was this isolation a deliberate strategy? Was he preparing for his departure by ensuring no one would be looking for him? Or was he targeted because of his isolation? A person with no connections is a person who will not be missed, a person whose absence creates no inconvenient questions. He had become a stranger in his own life, a man who could step out of his apartment one day and simply dissolve into the background noise of the city, leaving behind a neighborhood of people who never really knew he was there at all. Narrator. In cases like this, where every logical path leads to a dead end, investigators are often forced to look at the periphery, at the data points that were initially dismissed as noise. In the case of Alex Mercer, the noise was literal. On the night he is believed to have vanished, the night his digital and physical life ceased to be, something strange happened in his apartment building. It was logged in the building manager's maintenance report as a minor, localized power fluctuation affecting only the 7th floor. TVs flickered, showing nothing but snow. Digital clocks reset. And for about 15 minutes, an odd, low-frequency hum permeated the building's east wing. It was forgotten almost immediately, an urban anomaly. But it wasn't forgotten by everyone. One of Alex's neighbors, a retired audio engineer and amateur radio enthusiast named Arthur Chen, happened to be recording that night. He was trying to capture distant shortwave signals, and his sensitive equipment picked up the hum. He isolated it, thinking it was just interference, but it intrigued him. It wasn't the 60-cycle hum of an electrical main. It wasn't random. Narrator. Years later, when cold case detectives reopened the Mercer file, they stumbled upon Arthur's recording. They sent it to a signal analysis lab. The results were baffling. The audio contained a complex, non-repeating pattern. It had the structure of a signal, of transmitted information, but it matched no known human or natural source. It wasn't a radio broadcast, it wasn't satellite data, it wasn't a geophysical phenomenon. It was, for all intents and purposes, alien. This is where the case leaves the realm of the conventional and steps into the deep unknown. Fringe theorists and online communities dedicated to the Mercer case have posited a wild theory. They believe the key to the encrypted file on Alex's laptop, the 7B static.aes256 file, is not a password made of characters, but a pattern hidden within the anomalous audio signal. It's a hypothesis that sounds like science fiction, but in a case devoid of evidence, fiction is all they have left. What was Alex Mercer involved in? Was his job as a data analyst a cover for something else? Was he studying these signals? Or was he communicating with their source? The sterile apartment, the digital erasure, the profound isolation, viewed through this new lens, they no longer look like the actions of a man running away. They look like preparations, a cleansing, a methodical severing of ties to one reality before transitioning to another. The final chapter of Alex Mercer's story may not be about a man who disappeared. It may be about a man who was collected, transmitted. His entire existence, physical and digital, converted into pure information and beamed out into the void, leaving behind only a faint, lingering echo in the static. The disappearance with no physical trace was not an ending. It was a broadcast. Write in the comments where you are watching from and at what time, so I can get to know you better. To support the channel for free, don't forget to subscribe and like. Some doors, once opened, can never be closed again. Some people, once seen, were never there at all. Welcome back to the Obsidian Archive. In the anatomy of a disappearance, the most chilling moment is not the vanishing itself. It is the silence that follows. Not the silence of grief or confusion, but a calculated, engineered silence. It is the sound of erasure. This is what we confront in the case of Elias Thorne, a theoretical physicist who, according to official records, never existed. On October 26, 1978, Thorne was the lead scientist at the Blackwood Mountain Geophysical Observatory, a remote facility tasked with studying deep Earth resonance. He had a wife, 2 children, a mortgage, and a well-documented 20-year career. Yet, on October 27th, every record of his life was systematically expunged. His birth certificate, social security records, academic transcripts, employment files, all gone. The official statement from the Department of Energy, which oversaw the observatory, was not that he was missing, but that the position he supposedly held was never created, and the name Elias Thorne was not in any past or present personnel database. It was a statement of non-existence. This wasn't just a cover-up. It was a retroactive deletion from history. His colleagues were reassigned, their memories clouded by a series of routine psychological evaluations and non-disclosure agreements so severe they bordered on threats. His family was told he died in a training accident, a story that crumbled when they found no death certificate, no military record, no proof of the accident itself. They were left with ghosts of memories and a manila folder of family photos. The only remaining evidence that Elias Thorne had ever drawn breath. The process of this erasure is what fascinates and terrifies us. How do you make a person disappear not just from a place, but from reality itself? It requires a level of control that is almost unimaginable, an intricate web of bureaucratic power, capable of reaching into the past and snipping threads from the tapestry of recorded time. We have obtained declassified, albeit heavily redacted, internal memos from the project. They speak of a containment protocol and ontological sanitization. These are not terms for a missing person. These are terms for cleaning up a contamination, for purging a variable that has broken the experiment. What did Elias Thorne discover in the Deep Earth Resonance Project that was so dangerous, so reality-bending, that the only solution was to declare he was never real to begin with? This is the ultimate form of disappearance with no physical trace, because the very concept of the person becomes the trace that must be eliminated. The Blackwood Mountain Geophysical Observatory was not a place one could simply walk away from. It was a fortress of science and paranoia, built at the peak of a desolate mountain, accessible by a single, heavily guarded road. The facility itself was a self-contained ecosystem, hermetically sealed against the harsh alpine environment. The perimeter was a technological marvel of its time. Seismic sensors buried every 10 feet, infrared cameras sweeping the jagged landscape, and a pressure-sensitive fence that could detect the weight of a bird. For Elias Thorne to have vanished from this facility, he would have needed to become intangible. On the night of October 26th, records show no alarms were triggered. The gate logs show no vehicles entering or leaving after 6 p.m. The seismic sensors registered nothing more than the mountain's natural groans. The camera footage, which we've had analyzed by forensic specialists, shows nothing. No flicker of movement, no shadow out of place, no glitch in the recording. It's a perfect, unbroken loop of absolute stillness. The search and rescue teams that were secretly dispatched reported an environment devoid of clues. There were no footprints in the thin layer of frost that coated the ground, no broken branches, no discarded items. K9 units, brought in under a veil of secrecy, reportedly became disoriented and agitated, refusing to track any scent beyond the main laboratory door. Inside, Thorne's office was pristine. A half-finished cup of coffee sat on his desk, still lukewarm. His research notes were open to a page filled with complex equations and a single hastily scrawled phrase, "The resonance is a reflection." Nothing was disturbed. It was as if he had evaporated mid-thought. The implausibility of the perimeter transforms this from a missing person case into a physics problem. The law of conservation of mass states that matter cannot be created or destroyed. Elias Thorne, a man of roughly 180 pounds, had to go somewhere. Yet, the sealed, monitored environment provides no possible exit. Investigators were forced to consider theories that strayed far from convention. Was there a hidden exit? A secret tunnel? Every inch of the facility was scanned with ground-penetrating radar. Nothing. Could he have been removed by air? The region's radar logs for that night are conspicuously blank, showing no aircraft within a 50-mile radius. The perimeter wasn't just secure, it was absolute. Its failure to register his departure suggests that the rules of his departure were not the rules we understand. The disappearance with no physical trace from a place with no possible escape leaves us with a terrifying hypothesis. Perhaps he didn't exit the perimeter. Perhaps the perimeter, and the reality it contained, was breached from the inside out by the very forces he was studying. Among the few personal effects left in Elias Thorne's sealed office was an item that baffled investigators and was omitted from every official report. Tucked inside a worn copy of Flatland, A Romance of Many Dimensions, was a hand-drawn map. It was not a map of any known terrestrial location. It was a complex, labyrinthine diagram of what appeared to be intersecting planes and impossible geometric shapes, rendered with the precision of a master cartographer. At its center was a point labeled the Fold, and radiating from it were lines of cryptic symbols and equations that matched nothing in known mathematics. This was the cartographer's note, a potential key to Thorne's vanishing. The map was annotated in Thorne's own frantic handwriting. Phrases like perceptual blind spots, frequency-based topography, and causal dead ends were scrawled in the margins. It suggested he wasn't just studying geology. He was charting a different kind of territory altogether, a place not defined by latitude and longitude, but by principles we have yet to grasp. We commissioned an analysis of the map by Dr. Eris Thorne, a specialist in theoretical topology, who described it as a two-dimensional representation of a multi-dimensional space, almost like a schematic for navigating through layers of reality. He pointed out that the geometry defied Euclidean principles, where parallel lines seemed to converge and angles in triangles added up to impossible sums. It was a map of a place where our physical laws are mere suggestions. What was the Fold? Was it a location? A state of being? An event? One note, written next to an intricate spiral, read, "The resonance isn't a wave through space, it's a wrinkle in it. We're not listening to the Earth, we're listening to its echo in a place that is coterminous, but unseen." This single sentence reframes the entire experiment at Blackwood Mountain. They weren't just measuring seismic activity. They were potentially mapping, or even trying to access, a parallel reality that mirrors our own. Thorne's disappearance, then, might not have been an exit, but an entry. The map was his guide. The lack of a physical trace makes perfect sense if he didn't travel through our space, but instead stepped sideways into another. The cartographer's note is the most profound and unsettling piece of evidence because it implies the disappearance was intentional. It suggests Elias Thorne solved his impossible map and walked off its edge, leaving behind a blueprint for a journey from which no one has ever returned. The authorities who erased his existence may not have been covering up a death, but the discovery of a door they could not close. For 20 years, the case of Elias Thorne remained a ghost story whispered among a select few. The official narrative was one of non-existence, and the physical evidence was a void. But there was one more piece to this puzzle, a human element that surfaced decades later. Our final chapter rests on the testimony of a man known only as the Watcher. From 1975 to 1982, he was a signals intelligence analyst stationed at a remote listening post, his job to monitor electronic transmissions from various sensitive installations, including the Blackwood Mountain Observatory. In 2002, dying from cancer, he broke a lifelong vow of silence and gave a single audio-taped deposition to an independent journalist. We have acquired a copy of that tape. His voice, thin and raspy, describes the night of October 26, 1978. He states that there was an unscheduled activation of the deep resonance emitter at the observatory, a burst of energy so powerful it momentarily distorted their monitoring equipment. He says, "It wasn't a sound. Sound travels through a medium. This was the medium itself screaming." He describes seeing a cascade of impossible data on his screen, readings that defied physics. But the most disturbing part of his testimony concerns the visual feed. He claims that for exactly 3.7 seconds, the live camera feed from inside Thorne's laboratory showed something impossible. "The room bent," he whispers on the tape. "The corners of the walls, the desk, the man himself, they just warped, like looking at a reflection in disturbed water. And then he was gone. Not walked out, not faded away. The reflection settled, and the space where he stood was empty." The Watcher insists that the official footage, the clean loop of an empty room, is a fabrication. The original data, he claims, was seized and classified within minutes of the event. He was debriefed by men who didn't identify themselves and was forced to sign documents that threatened him with treason if he ever spoke of it. His testimony provides the only eyewitness account, however indirect, of Thorne's final moments. It supports the theories suggested by the cartographer's note, that Thorne didn't leave the room, but that the room itself and the laws of physics governing it were temporarily suspended. Was the Watcher a reliable narrator, or was he a dying man embellishing a memory? We may never know. But his account resonates with the other impossibilities of the case. It fills the void with a terrifying image, a man erased not by a conspiracy of men, but by a fundamental law of the universe he had the misfortune of discovering. The disappearance with no physical trace is complete, leaving only an echo on a forgotten tape and a map to nowhere. Write in the comments where you are watching from and at what time so I can get to know you better. To support the channel for free, don't forget to subscribe and like. There are some spaces that simply unexist people. For the first 72 hours, it was a local affair. A missing persons report, filed with a growing sense of dread. The town sheriff, a man who had seen his share of tragedy, treated it with the gravity it deserved. His deputies combed the woods, divers searched the frigid lake, and volunteers papered every telephone pole with a smiling, hopeful face. They found nothing. Not a footprint, not a fiber, not a single disturbed leaf that could be definitively tied to the vanished. It was as if the earth had opened, swallowed them whole, and then sealed itself without a scar. On the fourth day, everything changed. 2 black sedans, silent and imposing, rolled into the small town's municipal parking lot. Men in dark, impeccably tailored suits emerged, their faces impassive, their eyes missing the communal anxiety that had gripped the community. They weren't from the State Bureau. They were federal. They presented credentials from a department so obscure, the sheriff had to verify its existence. The local investigation was over. The case file, every note, every photograph, every half-formed theory scribbled on a coffee-stained napkin was confiscated. The official explanation was matters of national security, a phrase so broad and yet so final, it silenced all protest. The federal agents moved with a chilling efficiency, not like investigators searching for a person, but like a containment team neutralizing a threat. They didn't re-interview witnesses to find new leads. They interviewed them to establish boundaries, to draw lines of silence. They spoke in hypotheticals and non-disclosures, their questions designed to gauge what people knew, not to learn what had happened. The search grid wasn't expanded, it was cordoned off. Yellow police tape was replaced by stark black signs with white lettering that simply read, "Restricted area. No trespassing." The message was clear. This was no longer a search and rescue. It was a lockdown. What could a simple disappearance have to do with national security? What secret was so profound that it required the full, silencing weight of the federal government to be brought down upon a grieving town? The agents were phantoms, their presence erasing the local efforts, overwriting the narrative with their own classified text. The disappearance was no longer a local tragedy. It had become a federal secret, a file sealed and removed to a place where public eyes could never reach. Years turn into decades. The initial shock hardens into a scar, a permanent fixture in the town's collective memory. For the family, however, there is no healing, only the ceaseless, gnawing question. Hope, a stubborn and cruel thing, compels them to act. They file a Freedom of Information Act request, a FOIA, a citizen's key to the government's locked doors. They seek the case file, the one taken from the sheriff's office all those years ago. They want answers, closure, anything other than the suffocating silence. After months of bureaucratic delays and legal wrangling, a package arrives. It's heavy, filled with hundreds of pages. But it is not a book of answers. It is a monument to secrecy. Page after page is a sea of black ink, a labyrinth of redaction. Entire paragraphs, witness names, locations, dates, and expert testimonies are obliterated by thick, impenetrable bars. What remains is a skeleton of language, prepositions, and conjunctions floating in a void of censored information. The official report on the initial search area is almost entirely blacked out, except for the words, "Analysis revealed no anomalies of terrestrial origin." A geological survey summary is redacted, leaving only the phrase, "Subsurface resonance, inconsistent with known geological formations." Every meaningful detail is surgically removed. The document is less an investigative file and more a work of abstract art, its meaning found not in what is present, but in the overwhelming scale of what is absent. The redactions are not uniform. Some are thick, solid blocks, while others are thinner, as if a less critical but still classified detail was removed. This variation is a form of torture, inviting endless speculation. What lies beneath these black marks? A witness who saw impossible lights in the sky? A soil sample that contained elements not found on Earth? A piece of satellite data that was conveniently offline for a crucial 10-minute window? The file is a ghost. It confirms the government's deep involvement while revealing nothing about their findings. It is an act of profound administrative violence, telling a family that their loss is not theirs to understand. It belongs to the state, and the state has deemed it unknowable. Trying to navigate this labyrinth of redaction is like trying to map a black hole. You can only infer its shape and power by the light and information it consumes. The file is proof that the investigation didn't just go cold. It was deliberately frozen, buried under a mountain of classified ink to protect a truth deemed too dangerous for public consumption. In the common lexicon, a cold case is a file that gathers dust on a shelf, a homicide or disappearance, that has exhausted all leads. It is a passive thing, waiting for a new witness or a DNA match to breathe life back into it. But this case, and others like it, do not simply go cold. They enter what a handful of intelligence insiders refer to as the cold file protocol. This is not a dusty box. It is a cryogenic stasis. The file is transferred to a secure, climate-controlled subterranean facility, an archive of the anomalous. Its designation is changed from missing persons to zero trace event, or ZTE. Here it joins other cases that defy conventional explanation. Disappearances from locked rooms, ships found adrift with their crews vanished, pilots who radioed incomprehensible messages before their radar signature blinked out of existence. These are the cases that break the known rules of physics and human behavior. The cold file protocol is not about solving the past. It is about monitoring the future. Each ZTE file is encoded with a unique set of parameters: geographic coordinates, atmospheric conditions, temporal patterns, the specific nature of the disappearance. These parameters are fed into a global monitoring system, a sophisticated algorithm that sifts through trillions of data points every second. It scans satellite imagery, seismic sensors, electromagnetic field detectors, and even chatter from obscure online forums, looking for a recurrence, a pattern. The goal is not to find the person who vanished decades ago. The protocol operates on the chilling assumption that the individual is gone, an irrecoverable data point. The objective is to predict and potentially intercept the next event. The agents assigned to this protocol are not detectives. They are data analysts and theoretical physicists. They are the librarians of the impossible. They don't look for clues. They look for echoes, for statistical ghosts in the machine. To the outside world, the case is a forgotten tragedy. To the family, it is an open wound. But within the silent, sterile walls of the archive, it is an active variable in an equation we are not meant to know exists. This protocol is the government's ultimate admission of impotence in the face of the unknown. They cannot solve it, they cannot explain it, so they classify it, bury it, and watch it from a distance, hoping to one day understand the nature of the abyss that looked back. Decades after the silence fell, a new generation of analysts, armed with technologies the original investigators could only dream of, quietly reopens the file. This is not an official investigation. It's a clandestine project operating in the digital shadows of the intelligence community. They call it technological necromancy, the practice of raising the ghost of a case from its digital grave. They begin with the original, unredacted file, a holy grail of data, accessible only to those with the highest clearance. Every byte of information is fed into a quantum computing system. The AI, named Orpheus, is tasked with a single objective: find a pattern, no matter how faint, that every human analyst has missed. Orpheus doesn't just look at the case itself, it cross-references it with every other ZTE on file. It analyzes decades of seemingly unrelated data streams. Did a specific solar flare cycle coincide with this disappearance, and another one a continent away, 20 years later? Is there a correlation between these events and fluctuations in the Earth's magnetic field, so minuscule they were previously dismissed as noise? The system reconstructs the 72 hours before the disappearance with unfathomable detail. It pulls archived satellite photos from defunct spy satellites, using advanced algorithms to enhance the grainy images, searching for heat signatures or ground disturbances invisible to the naked eye. It sifts through geological ice core samples and ancient tree rings, looking for isotopic anomalies that might indicate an exotic energy release at that exact time and place. This is a search for a digital echo, a faint ripple in the fabric of reality left behind by an event that left no physical trace. It's a desperate attempt to find the ghost in a world of machines. The analysts watch as Orpheus connects disparate points of light on a holographic map of the globe, forming constellations of the unexplained. A chilling pattern begins to emerge, a loose geographic and temporal clustering of zero-trace events that seems to defy random chance. The technology isn't just re-examining evidence, it's questioning the very nature of the event. Was it an abduction, a natural but unknown phenomenon? Or was it something far stranger, a localized erasure from spacetime itself? The necromancy is working. It has not found the body, but it has found a shadow, a ghost haunting the global data stream, suggesting the disappearance wasn't an end, but a transition to somewhere else, a place from which our technology is only now beginning to hear the faintest whisper. Write in the comments where you are watching from and at what time, so I can get to know you better. To support the channel for free, don't forget to subscribe and like. Some doors, once opened, can never be closed again. Narrator. We are conditioned to believe in a world of cause and effect, a world governed by tangible laws. An object is dropped, it falls. A person walks from one room to another, they leave a trail, footprints, disturbed air, a scent. But what happens when these laws appear to break? What happens when the effect, a person's complete and total absence, has no discernible cause? No footprints, no struggle, no body. Not a single misplaced atom to suggest they were ever there. For decades, these impossible disappearances have been relegated to the files of the unexplained, gathering dust in cold case archives. But a fringe of theoretical physicists working in the silent hum of laboratories and the complex equations of spacetime have proposed a theory so profound, so unsettling, it threatens to rewrite our understanding of existence itself. They call it the quantum hypothesis. To understand this, we must first abandon our classical Newtonian view of the universe. We must journey into the subatomic realm, a place of probability clouds and uncertainty, where particles can exist in multiple states at once. This is the world of quantum mechanics. One of its most baffling concepts is the many worlds interpretation. It suggests that for every choice, every quantum event, the universe splits. An infinite number of parallel realities branch off, each containing a different outcome. You turned left instead of right? In another universe, a copy of you turned right? You are alive here, but perhaps not elsewhere. The theory posits that these universes are sealed off from one another, running in parallel, forever separate. But what if they aren't? What if there are weak points, thin veils between realities, where the barrier can be momentarily breached? Could a person, at the exact wrong moment, in the exact wrong place, simply slip through, not teleported, not abducted, but delocalized, their quantum state recohering in an adjacent reality, leaving a perfect, untraceable void in ours? Think of it like a single frame of film being cut from a reel. The story continues, but there is a jump, an inexplicable gap. For those left behind, the person is simply gone. No evidence of their departure because, in a sense, they never departed. Their existence in this timeline was simply terminated. It explains the impossible cleanliness of these scenes, the baffling lack of any physical trace. There is no trace because there was no event in our physical world. The event occurred between worlds. This idea gains even more terrifying traction when we consider quantum entanglement, what Einstein called spooky action at a distance. Two particles linked across any distance, instantaneously affecting one another. Could a person become entangled with a quantum anomaly, a random fluctuation in the space-time foam that pulls them from our consensus reality? They wouldn't be dead. They wouldn't be lost. They would just be elsewhere. An echo in a reality we can never touch, leaving behind only a question mark carved into the fabric of our own. A case file stamped with the ultimate cold truth. Missing with no physical trace. Filtered voice. You can't use my name. They're always listening. Chimera wasn't about weapons, not in the way you think. It was about erasure, the ability to unperson someone, to remove them from the board so cleanly, it's like they were never a piece to begin with. Narrator. While quantum physicists gaze at the stars and the spaces between atoms, another more terrestrial theory festers in the shadows of declassified documents and whistleblower testimonies. This theory doesn't require a leap into parallel worlds, but a descent into the clandestine operations of unaccountable power. It speaks of a secret so profound, it required the development of technology capable of making people vanish. We are talking about Project Chimera. The name itself is a whisper in intelligence circles, officially denied, its paper trail systematically scrubbed from every archive. But fragments remain. Leaked memos referencing non-linear transport, redacted budget lines for ontological engineering, and chilling eyewitness accounts from technicians who worked in deep underground facilities, describing experiments that defied known physics. The official objective, according to the few breadcrumbs we can follow, was advanced cloaking and tactical insertion. But the unofficial program, the Black Book Project within the project, was far more sinister. The goal was perfect, untraceable disappearance. Imagine a technology based on localized reality warping, not teleportation, which would leave energy signatures, but a device that could create a small, temporary bubble of altered physical law. A device that could, for a fraction of a second, unwrite a person from a specific location, breaking down their molecular structure into base energy and dissipating it without a trace. No heat, no radiation, no sound. just absence. Consider the case of Dr. Eris Thorne, a brilliant physicist recruited from MIT in the late 1980s. His work was in quantum tunneling. For 2 years, he lived on a secure military base in the Nevada desert. His letters home grew increasingly cryptic, mentioning a cage not made of bars and seeing through the static. Then, on October 7th, 1989, he vanished. Not from a street corner or a park, but from inside a sealed, positive pressure clean room, monitored by 2 guards and a closed-circuit camera. The guards saw nothing. The camera footage for a single frame shows only a burst of what looks like television static, where Dr. Thorne was standing. Then he is gone. His coffee cup is still warm on the console. His notes are open mid-sentence, but every ounce of his physical being has ceased to exist in that room. No alarms were triggered. The air pressure remained constant. He was there, and then he was not. This wasn't a disappearance, it was a deletion. Was Dr. Thorne a victim of his own creation? A test subject for a technology that had been perfected? Or was he about to blow the whistle and Project Chimera was used to silence him in the most absolute way imaginable? The official report lists him as a defector, but there is no evidence he ever left the base, let alone the country. His file is a monument to impossibility, a testament to a power that can edit reality, leaving behind only the ghost of a memory and the chilling shadow of its name. Chimera. Narrator. Before the language of quantum physics, before the whispers of Black Ops projects, our ancestors had their own explanations for those who stepped out of the world and were never seen again. They didn't speak of parallel universes or classified technology. They spoke of the Fae, the good neighbors, the hidden folk. They told stories of people who wandered into the wrong part of the woods at twilight, who trespassed on an ancient hill or mound, and were simply taken. These were not tales of violence or struggle. The folklore is unnervingly consistent on this point. The disappearances were quiet, sudden, and absolute. One moment, a child is picking flowers at the edge of a field. The next, only the flowers remain. A traveler rests by a standing stone. Their companions turn their backs for an instant and find only an empty space against the rock. The stories span cultures and centuries, from the jinn of the Arabian deserts, who can snatch a person from their tent, to the Irish legends of being taken away to Tir na Nog, a land where time flows differently. A person might return minutes later to find years have passed, or they might never return at all. Dismissed today as simple superstition, these ancient tales describe the exact same phenomenon we grapple with now: disappearance with no physical trace. Could these folkloric accounts be a pre-scientific attempt to describe a recurring, natural or unnatural event? Are there certain geographic locations, window areas as some researchers call them, where the veil between our world and something else is thinner? Places like the Bennington Triangle in Vermont, where a number of people vanished without a trace in the mid-20th century, or the forest of Hoia-Baciu in Romania, long associated with paranormal phenomena and inexplicable disappearances. The folklore warns against such places. It provides rules. Don't wear your best clothes into the woods. Don't eat their food. Never tell them your true name. These sound like fanciful warnings, but perhaps they are cultural memories of a genuine danger, the specifics lost to time, but the core warning preserved. What if these Fae are not magical beings, but interdimensional entities, or a natural phenomenon we lack the senses to perceive? What if their taking of a person is no more malicious than a human picking up an interesting-looking pebble? The pebble is simply moved from its reality to another, with no thought given to the world it left behind. This perspective recasts our modern mystery as an ancient primal fear. It suggests that for all our science and technology, we may still be subject to ancient laws and entities that operate just outside our field of vision, and that the world we know is bordered by a wilderness far older and stranger than we can possibly imagine. A wilderness from which there is sometimes no return. Narrator, quantum realities, shadow governments, ancient folklore. We construct these elaborate narratives to fill the void, to give shape and meaning to the unthinkable. Because the alternative is a truth too stark to bear, that a person can simply cease to be, that the universe can contain a subtraction so perfect it leaves no remainder. This is the ultimate destination of every investigation into a disappearance with no physical trace. Not a conclusion, but an abyss. An unclosed case file that becomes a monument to uncertainty. For every theory, there is the devastating human cost. A mother who leaves her son's bedroom untouched for 30 years, waiting for a door that will never open. A detective who retires with the photograph of a missing girl still pinned to his wall, her smile a daily reminder of his failure to find a single thread. These are the true victims, left to navigate a world of phantom limbs and unanswered questions. Their grief has no grave to visit, no finality to anchor it. It is a perpetual state of waiting, a wound that can never scar over. The absence of evidence becomes a form of psychological torture. Every possibility, no matter how outlandish, must be entertained. Was it a random act of violence with a miraculously clean perpetrator? An abduction by a foreign power? Did they simply walk away to start a new life, erasing their past so flawlessly? Or was it something else? Something that whispers from the edge of physics and folklore. This is the core of the terror. The phenomenon attacks our most fundamental assumption, that we are permanent fixtures in our own lives, that our existence has weight and mass. But these cases suggest it does not. They suggest our presence is conditional, fragile, and potentially revocable, without notice or reason. We are left to wonder if the victims found another world, or if they were merely erased from this one. The silence that follows is the only answer we will ever get. The empty space they leave behind is the only evidence we have. It is proof of nothing, and yet it is proof of everything. It proves that there are still shadows our science cannot penetrate, depths our surveillance cannot map, and doors in this world that open into pure, silent, unending absence. The case remains open, not because we expect to find a clue, but because to close it would be to admit that a human life can be subtracted from the world as if it were a simple error in a cosmic equation. And that is an admission we are not prepared to make. Not yet.